This is a reading of the short story Retch by Joshua Paquet. Dim the lights if you like, or close your eyes. Enjoy. I've had many strange dreams, some horrifyingly real and others bizarre beyond belief. None, however, in all my 25 years of existence on this earth were as strange and deeply unsettling as the one I had had last night. It was so strange and unnerving that when I awoke, I felt exhausted. I was both physically and mentally depleted. It had marked me in such a way that it was something I had to tell someone about. It was the reluctant topic of discussion in the morning. Though I had difficulty trying to relate to my wife the feelings of awe and helplessness in my dream, I could easily convey the wildness of my imagination painted with heavy strokes of dreadful black and grey greys in my dream world. I prayed silently. It had been my imagination, and it had not been some evil window into some horrible place on this earth. How I wished, like so many other dreams, that its images would flee from my mind with the rising sun. But the visions would not leave me. Like a nagging pain of unknown origins, its ongoing presence was becoming ever more alarming. I remember trying to describe this scene to my beloved, and found myself easily illustrating for her the white, snow-covered land with sparse, jet-black and sickly-looking trees protruding from the sheet of ice that covered the snow like thin, gnarly fangs from some beast hidden below. Though I tried my best to impart a sense of wonderment, with a hint of having been somewhat unsettled, I did not disclose the degree to which I was disturbed when my eyes came across the black figure convulsing upon a snowbank only meters away. I told her that I had seen a monster, like some crazed, abominable snowman, I remember saying. But the label hardly seemed to fit. From the distance I was at, it was hard to distinguish any features, and so it was hard to get a sense of what it really looked like. Its shape, tall and bent in aberrant ways, was enough to avert my eyes, but I looked on somehow, drawn towards its pulsating movement, like how I imagined I might have been unable to look away from an open skull in brain surgery. Then it began to retch, as though it were trying to expel something large. What I believed to be its mouth opened wide and black. Gunky stuff began to spill from its maw onto the snow. The sound was enough to make me feel as though my stomach's own contents were beginning to come up. I went to look away, having seen and heard enough. My dream wouldn't let me avoid this trauma, and when I was inexplicably made to turn back to face this creature, I was much closer to it than I had been before. With the beast nearer to me now, I could see its features easier, though it was still hard to make sense of what I was looking at. It wasn't like anything I had seen or heard about or had even imagined before. It had a face that was reminiscent of something partly human, but its likeness to something familiar ended there. Its eyes were at the side of its face and appeared to be dull and lifeless. It was difficult to tell if the thing had noticed my presence. It was more likely that it was more involved in what appeared to be an enormous effort to evacuate the contents of its stomach. Then there was a crunch. Like someone or something had set foot on the snow and broke through the crust in this untrespassed land. I looked around me nervously to see if there was anything lurking in my surroundings. When I saw nothing but barren snowfields and gangly black trees, I looked down at my feet and found that there was a single footprint in front of my right foot. Had I stepped back without even knowing? Everything was quiet. Had the thing noticed me? I looked up to find that the beast was motionless. Gone was its agitated movement and the sound that turned my stomach moments earlier. Now was only this eerie stillness that made my chest feel uncomfortably warm and tight. I was certain that the monster was looking at me. Thank God, that's when I awoke. "Honey," my wife said, "calm down. It was just a dream." I hadn't noticed, but I had grew more tense as I had recounted my dream. My breathing had quickened, my muscles tensed. It was as though I was reliving that infernal nightmare. I hadn't the mind to share the dream with anyone else that day, and hoped that night I would not experience another dream like it. I remember that next night. I was reluctant to sleep and found my way to the television to try and distract myself from thoughts about the monster, lest it should trigger some mutation of that nightmare in my dreams tonight. The light-hearted movie, the witty article in the paper, they didn't do much to divert my intrusive thoughts. And that night, I dreamed a vivid dream once more. This time, I was in the streets of a town. The brick buildings on either side of the street I was headed down extended towards a starless night. The street lights seemed dimmer than what would be expected, and made most things appear to be dark shadows. The moonlight seen only scarcely atop a building to the northwest did little to improve visibility. The moon itself was not visible. It was hidden behind the haunting structures of the night. I walked for a while down the desolate streets, not knowing exactly where I was headed. I passed dark alleyways and storefronts. There was some commotion down one side street, but I didn't care to venture to see what it was. The frosted letters that adorned the windows on the shops of town were placed in some weird order, as if they were meant to form some strange anagram. I couldn't untangle their meaning, and growing more and more unsettled, I decided to continue on my way. When finally I heard the noise of the going-ons in the alley behind me become the bustling in the side streets ahead of me, I knew that this dream was quickly becoming a nightmare. It was as though I was walking in circles. The structures, albeit mostly without any distinguishing features, became familiar. I stopped and found myself at the mouth of a narrow back street. The place was dark, even darker than the streets I had made my way down. Darker than the tallest parts of the city towers, or even more so than the night sky. Then there was movement. I hadn't really known what I was looking at, but my imagination filled in what had happened. It couldn't be, I remember telling myself, believing in an instant that I had come upon a man lying on his back, his midsection down obscured by thick shadows of the passage. What I hoped I hadn't witnessed was something in the darkness pulling the person into the night. Then there came a sound, a horribly disgusting sound that brought my heart up into my throat. It was that gagging, retching sound I had heard from the monster in the nightmare past. Having heard enough, I was quick to turn and begin to evacuate from that area, but my movement was so slow, like I was running through water. I had time to turn back at least 3 times to see if the thing was following me before I cleared the first building down the street. When finally I anxiously went to look back again, the frosting in a shop window caught my eye. My mind processed the writing in front of me as I slowly ran by. I continued to turn my head after I had read the sign and saw that the thing was close behind me. It had found me somehow. The feeling was terrifying. It had made its way to a street that on it had a shop that was very familiar to me. It had in fact found me in my own town. Thank God that that's when I woke. I hadn't the fortitude to tell my wife about the nightmare this time, though I'm sure she suspected something. I could see the concern in her eyes, and felt at several points in the afternoon that she had been on the verge of asking if the reason why I woke wide-eyed and wet with sweat early in the morning had anything to do with my paranoid affect throughout the day. I must admit, I was abnormally silent, fearing that somehow conversation would lead into talking about the nightmare, and my suspicion that I was being followed ever since having locked eyes with the thing in my dreams. They were crazy thoughts, and I knew it. But nonetheless, that next night I doubled my effort to try and sway my subconscious into fashioning me more pleasant dreams. It was near about 4 a.m. before I made my way to bed and crawled under the sheets. My wife laid curled into a ball on the right side of the bed with blankets drawn tight to her body, forming a cozy pocket. I pulled the sheets to allow me to cover my body. My eyelids, heavy, were quick to drop down over my pupils, and I began to dream again. This time I was at the foot of a tree. The skies were becoming dark blue from black, and I could tell that it was very early in the morning. The leafy branches overhead cast speckled shadows on the grass below me. Leaves themselves hissed in the cool gusts of wind. Remembering then my nightmares in previous nights, I tried not to look around to try and orient myself to my surroundings, lest I saw the beast, or worse, that I saw it again, and that I was near to where I lived. Despite my effort to try and close my eyes and wait the dream out, there was a light that had come on that drew my attention. I could see it beyond the tree branches, but just barely. I walked out from under the tree canopy to find that the light was coming from a window, a bedroom window to be precise. And the feeling came again, that terrifying feeling. It crept up from the seat of my spine and made my thoughts race, for I was looking into my own bedroom window. I could see my wife trying to rouse me. Something had startled her. I scanned my environment to see that one of the basement windows had been broken into. Beyond the shattered glass was a thick darkness impenetrable to the eye. It was a sickly, surreal experience seeing yourself in a dream, wanting to wake up, to flee, but can't, adding a different dimension to my horror. Then I woke up. To my right was my wife, appearing to be in the same position that I had last seen her in. Just beyond the head of the bed was a dresser, with television facing me. The right corner of the room was a door that led out into the hallway, that led into the guest room, bathroom, and living room. I was very still and holding my breath so that I could detect any noises in the house. I waited for a while and heard nothing. I looked at the open door and saw nothing there except for the light from the bathroom. I couldn't help but stare at the doorway for a very long while, expecting the monster to have come out from my dreams and into reality, but it did not. When finally I was satisfied that it was not coming, and that there was no intruders in the house, I turned ever so slowly onto my side, so as not to awake my wife. Upon hearing the bedsheet slide over my body, she said, "Honey, are you awake?" "Yes," I answered back sheepishly, hoping I had not awakened her. "Did you hear that too?" she asked. "What?" "The noise. I think there's someone in the house," she said plainly. The words made me tense. I realized then that she had not just been curled up calmly in a ball, but instead was rigid with fear, trying hard to try and detect noises herself. I turned to look once more into the doorway and saw that horrible thing come into the light. The last thing I heard was this horrible retch. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoy. For more, come visit www.thedarkopera.com.